Week 5, whoop-de-doo. A couple things before we start. Sorry again for the scenery change. I promise I will be back to my house on Wednesday. And also, why are we having a 2-night event? And why did this episode have to be 3 hours? But let's get into it. Okay, so this episode starts off with the Iowa caucus update. Thank goodness for that. Followed by a recap of last week's episode, which why would you need that when you have my YouTube channel? Everyone is in Cleveland and all the girls are still bickering, and Peter is trying to get ready for the rose ceremony. But a very important line that we hear is, stay in your lane. We've heard this before. Almost every single episode of Hannah B's season. And if I remember correctly, these girls are sick of Hannah B. So why are we stealing her lines? This is just all a result of Alayah still being here and apparently not being honest. And I have no idea what she's not being honest about. Yes, she has multiple personalities, but she's not trying to pretend she doesn't. She's showing them all. And then Sydney says, Peter's actions are questionable. They're questionable, Sydney? You realize he's dating multiple women and you signed up to be a part of it? You chose this. But clearly the girls get to Peter's head again because he pulls Alayah aside, tells her he knows she's a good person and all of these other positive things, which is what always happens when you're setting someone up to get rid of them. And he does. My guess is he probably knows she's not the one that he's going to marry, which ultimately helps him follow through with the decision. But there is no doubt that he was manipulated by all of these women. And it just makes me so mad. But then this next part of the episode is where I get the most mad. Peter's holding Alayah's hand and walking her out to the car. And as the two of them pass the litter box full of cats, we hear someone say, the disrespect. Now it's disrespectful for him to be kind to someone that you don't like. What happened to stay in your lane?
Hey, Peter, Alayah sucks. She's fooling you. The disrespect. But I'm here. I'm in my own lane.
These two-faced sons of... Then we've got Victoria P over here saying she's still got questions and she's not sure if she can trust him. Well, you know what? We have questions, Victoria, about you. It really irritates me how all these girls are so concerned with the other girls. Not Peter. Not like, oh, this must be really hard for Peter to be dealing with right now. My potential future husband. But of course not, because that would be a sign of maturity. It's the Bachelor. I just can't emphasize enough how ridiculous this whole concept is. And they are like resisting the concept. You signed up for it. It's the last time I'll say that. Promise. So he comes out and tries to talk to the girls and clear the air about what happened in the decision to send Alayah home. And he apologizes for the toxicity. And I just want to tell him, Peter, Alayah was not the problem. And you will soon realize that the problem lies within all of the contents of the litter box. Then he talks to Victoria P and is talking about how he just really trusts her. Why? Why do you trust her? She lied. And at the end of the night, I don't feel better. He seems to feel better. But all these girls do is just complain all the time. Lexi, Sydney, Natasha, all three of them are irritated. They're so mad they've had no time to talk to Peter and just, go on and on about themselves. They haven't had that chance. But you know why? It's because they make it their life goal to add fuel to the fire that is Alayah. That's not Peter's fault. It's yours. I have a lot of venting to do today. And we get to the rose ceremony, and all I can think is, please do not send anyone home who is normal. And then who gets roses? Sydney, Lexi, Natasha. Can't wait for more of their crap. Hannah Ann gets a rose, and I approve. I'm happy with Hannah Ann now. She's gotten much better, but she still just kind of seems like a young college sorority sister without the drinking problem. Cheyenne also gets a rose, and thank God, because according to last week, your bruises indicate whether or not you should get a rose, and she clearly should have like 11 roses. Did you see her arms? Then we have roses for Victoria P, Kelley, and Tammy. And he did get rid of some normal people, but why wouldn't he? It's just the way things go. Do I need to bring up Sarah again? And then we see a quick clip of what's to come today. And do you know what it is?
Drama.
Yeah. So all the girls get there and they are so excited to be in Costa Rica. This is awesome. And I am just on Kelley's wavelength, who's like jet lagged. And she's just like, I'm tired of traveling. Then Peter comes out and he's got a cut on his head. And we all already knew that this was going to happen because they just blew it up before the season even started. And he starts to tell all the girls the story of how it happened. And he's saying, he was walking through the trails up near this volcano and a puma walks out in front of him. All the girls are like, oh my God. He's lying. Not only are they catty, but they are gullible. He instead ran into a golf cart and managed to stab himself in the forehead with a drinking glass. So we jump right into the first one-on-one, and he takes Sydney. And I'm secretly hoping that this just does not go well. But they take a helicopter over volcanoes and waterfalls and whatever. It's a good day. And Sydney's already not my favorite, but I have a new issue with her. One of my pet peeves is when girls push their hair back, like they need it to stay in one place but refuse to just get it out of their face. Just put it behind your ears. Okay, so let me demonstrate. Like this. Like it's windy out, the wind is blowing your hair everywhere, and still just have to do this. Now, I purposely avoid putting my hair behind my ears because I have elf ears. Why do you have to do this? I get annoyed by weird things. But my favorite part of this is where Peter says she's the most mysterious. Well, of course she is. She's shady. Mysterious people always hide in the shade. They're just, waiting around there, and then when the sun comes out, they just disappear. And he also says she's the best kisser and has soft lips. Well, if you're in the shade, you can't get any sun damage. Then they go off and they have dinner, and we find out Sydney also has a tragic childhood where her parents got divorced. She hardly sees her dad. She dealt with a lot of discrimination in high school. These are like awful stories that these people have gone through, and I feel bad, but it just feels like America's Next Top Model. But she gets the rose. And now we move on to a very important part of the episode. It's not entertaining, it's really quite stupid, but it is the basis of everything else that is to come for the next 2 hours. Basically, Kelsey is crying. Nothing new there. But she's upset about seeing her man with other girls, specifically Sydney, because it goes on to turn into like a Sydney smack talk. That, her conversation with Tammy, leads into more gossip. And the gossip. I just can't deal with it anymore. Then we get a commercial clip and we see McKenna crying and saying that she's so scared Peter is going to take her home. Can one of these group dates be like a grammar lesson? Okay, we've got a champagne fiasco and lingerie, and now Peter's going to take her home. Now we go to the group date, and it's another modeling date. And if we have a modeling date, who's going to be there? Hannah Ann. Now they're doing a photo shoot with Cosmo, and whoever wins gets to be on the cover with Peter. Ooh. Basically, we just see a lot of body exposure, a lot of weird kissing. We also realize Victoria F tries to claim that she is the shy girl that whispers and has no confidence, and this date tells me otherwise. But Tammy's reaction in that one picture just made everything okay. So after all the photos, the winner is announced, and it is Victoria F. Shy little Victoria F. I'm sorry, I just have a little bit of a vendetta against her ever since her exchange with Alayah. She's just suddenly turned into a very sassy girl in like not a good way. I also just have to mention that throughout this whole episode, I was not as joyful as I should have been because all I could think about was how the heck am I going to stay up until 11 o'clock? Wow, am I just like in a really bad mood today? Okay, I'm going to cheer up. So we get to the cocktail hour portion of the date, and Kelsey tells Peter she's falling in love with him. Victoria F is depressed to be 26 years old, and then more gossip ensues. I'm happy about it. I'm cheerful. But this time with the gossip, everyone's involved. Okay, they're all sitting in a giant pot with a big, huge stirrer, and everyone's hand is on it. Tammy decides to sit down with Peter and just talk smack about Kelsey and how she apparently has a drinking problem. This is very frustrating to me because Tammy was not supposed to be one of the girls that rides that gossip train. She was like the funny one. We were like, okay, the gossip is annoying, but Tammy's a lot of fun. Not anymore. And apparently Peter takes everything everyone tells him to heart because now he has to approach Kelsey about it. He asks her about her mental breakdown, to which she says it wasn't a breakdown. It was her processing her feelings. Yeah, that's what it seemed like to me, Tammy. Venting. She was venting. That's what I think. And I think Tammy only really wanted to say this to Peter after she found out that Kelsey expressed her thought that she was the only real one in the house and everyone else was fake. It was like Tammy wanted to get back at her or something. So Kelsey comes back to the litter box and says to everybody.
So, do we want to talk about who said I was emotionally unstable today?
And also says she's supposedly unstable. Grammar lesson. Also that she's not ashamed of crying in front of people. Well, obviously. These girls really are getting mad over the dumbest things. Who cares if she's crying and saying Sydney isn't right for Peter? Who cares? You are not her psychiatrist, and you don't have the right or the education to tell her that her crying is too much. Yeah, 4 hours is slightly excessive. Seems that way, I can agree. But this is just turning into like a Mean Girls show. Really, throughout this whole conversation, I'm on Kelsey's side. It's all the girls versus Kelsey, and it feels like we're back to the Luke P episode. Victoria F basically tells Kelsey she's crying too much and needs to be a strong woman to get through something like this. Okay, Victoria, well, did you run into a corner after you told Peter that your ex-boyfriend was Chase Rice? That's how you cope, apparently. Well, Kelsey cries. But the date ends finally, and Hannah Ann gets the rose. And now we get to Kelley's one-on-one. And the interviews show us that she's not really super excited about this. She's not sure if she's into it. She's like, cool, I have a one-on-one. She basically just wants to have fun. And Peter also expresses that he has some concerns with Kelley, and he wants to find out if she's really in this because their relationship has kind of plateaued since the first week. And then they meet up at the date, and I just love how she's like, hi, I'm gonna jump, like warns him and then jumps on him. Now they get to the place where the date is, and I'm not really sure what went on here or like what the purpose was. Something spiritual and something about Jupiter. I missed the explanation because I don't do well with subtitles, and they're speaking in Spanish, and Peter's listening intently because he can understand it, and Kelley's just kind of like... And the date reveals somehow that she has repressed energy, and also that she's slightly afraid of lizards. And then we cut to Tammy and Kelsey bickering. Unfortunately, Kelsey calls Tammy honey. And now I'm done, Kelsey. I tried to defend you. You know how I feel about that name. The conversation overall, there's just too much judgment, and the girls just feeling like they are the all-knowing master of the universe. Really, that's basically all you need to know from that conversation. Then we cut back to Peter at dinner with Kelley, and he opens up about his feelings, how he feels like Kelley kind of disappeared. They had this high at the beginning, and now they're kind of basically telling her what he's there for, and he expects her to be there for the same thing and not just to have fun with Peter. And it's funny because Kelley kind of implies that she realizes she's the most mature one in the house after having a conversation with Hannah Ann. She claims that's not the case, but we know that's the case. Then she accuses Peter of rewarding drama. That's valid. He really kind of is entertaining this drama. And I'm sure it's hard and confusing to be in that position, but Kelley just doesn't really fit in with these girls at the house. She's mature. But ultimately, Peter decides to keep her, which I think is good for him because he needs somebody who's going to challenge him in a good way. One more minor concern I have to mention. Peter says often that he knows this process works because he has experienced it firsthand. However, he fell in love with a confused girl who made Peter her third choice, not just on the show, but off the show as well. Does that count as this being a process that works? I'm not sure. But I really like Kelley. I feel like she was plucked straight out of Mother Earth, just a genuine real life person, not from Gossip Valley or from planet Venus where men need to go to grow themselves. But then Tammy's gossiping again with Lexi. Can all these girls just go home? I'm sorry, this is the longest recap ever, but this was the longest episode ever. I need to work on my good mood again. Good mood, Nicki. So Kelsey goes to talk to Peter, and she covers all of the bases of kind of her conversation with Tammy. Then Peter makes a boo-boo and said, maybe Tammy is just jealous of our relationship. Oh, yikes. And as if Peter's choices weren't already gas to the flame, he gives a rose to Kelsey. Before the rose ceremony, he's just a little rule breaker. And where did that rose just apparate from anyhow? All I know is these girls are going to be livid. And were they? Yes, they were. So Kelsey comes back to the house where all the girls are. She's like, I'm going to try to explain this without being awkward. I don't want to put anybody in a weird position. But it doesn't work out that way, which is unfortunate for her Peter put her in like a bad position. And there's really no good way to handle that when everybody hates you. Now, all the girls are mad that Kelsey gets to talk to Peter before the cocktail hour. Well, maybe you should have thought of it first, okay? When are these people going to realize that there are no rules to play by anymore? And now we've still got 30 minutes left in the episode. Peter, let me help you out. Give a rose to Madison, and then we'll call it a day, okay? And truthfully, Peter is partially to blame for all this garbage. But it all started with Hannah B. Really, everything kind of rolls back to Hannah Brown. She set the tone on the first night. But then again, that wasn't her idea. That was all the producers' plan. The producers ruined this. The producers set the tone on the first night. Everything falls back on the producers. Seriously. But we get to the cocktail party and soon find out from Chris that there is no cocktail party because Peter has all the clarity he needs. Never seen this one before. And apparently McKenna likes this news. Typically when there's a new announcement, she does her usual like about to pass out, like she's transforming into the werewolf. But this time it just like turns around or something. She's like, was weird. Now, for some reason, Kelsey is to blame for all of this. Dude, Peter made up his mind. If he doesn't give you a rose, he doesn't like you, okay? Cocktail party isn't going to fix that. But luckily, after a good presentation of evidence, the girls realize that it's not just a Kelsey problem. It is a Tammy Kelsey issue, and mostly Tammy. And Tammy's defense is that Peter needs to know her concerns, that Kelsey was showing alcoholic tendencies. What? After she drank one night? Then we got Sydney over here, and she's saying that she hopes Peter sends home anyone who's crazy. Well, Sydney, be careful what you wish for. And then over here, McKenna's scared that Peter's going to take her home. I just can't get over that line. But she says she had to tell him something so big tonight. Well, McKenna, last week you were just as concerned and freaked out that you weren't going to get a rose and you weren't going to be able to express yourself to him. Maybe once you actually got the rose, you should have realized, I better talk to him on this group date. Did you do that? No. There's always a risk that there won't be a cocktail party. Have you ever seen the show? Finally, we get to the rose ceremony and McKenna is back to her impaired transformer self. And right before he starts giving out roses, Sydney says, Peter, I need to talk to you. And she's got to say she wasn't being malicious with the Kelsey stuff. And then McKenna's like, Peter, I need to talk to you. Who knows what she even said. And this has essentially turned into a cocktail hour. And now all the girls are mad because they didn't get their own time. Peter finally starts handing out roses. Luckily, Madison gets a rose. Typical people like Victoria P. But then McKenna gets a rose. And the last rose goes to Sydney. Well, when all the girls were thinking Peter's in the back reconsidering his decision after his mini cocktail hour, he was actually getting word from the producers on what choice they wanted him to make. Basically who they wanted him to pick last. He probably didn't care either way if Tammy stayed in the house, but they need their drama. And then as Sheehan is leaving, she's got to stick a last stab in there and say, be careful about some of the girls in this house. I don't think they're all who they say they are. I think she used the word divas, and she still has bruises on her arm, so bruises do not equal roses. And then the last part of the night is previews for Wednesday, and it's basically everything that we just saw today. However, the final scene with Chris Harrison was very entertaining, but it's also an indication that these producers are snakes. They're admitting it openly. But that's it. I'm exhausted and completely dramaed out, and I feel like I just want to quit watching this show, but no, I'll see you on Thursday.